I don't know if any of y'all know what a concha is, but dude, these are so good. It's like they just put like frosting, baked it over a piece of bread, and then just sold it. Like that's all it is. But it's like heavenly. I don't know why, but it's so good. Judging by the title of this video, I know you guys are hyped, so we're gonna get on with it. But this is still fire. I highly recommend. You can get them at like Vaughn's or Ralph's. I remember during middle school they would sell these in like the morning, but that was only if you came before school started. So you had to get there like super freaking early at like 7 in the morning so that you can get some of these with like chocolate milk and shit. They would sell that. Fire. It was like $2. Amazing. But with that, let's get on with it. What up, y'all? It's your boy Raymond back up in here with another video. And yes, it is that time for my 2019 albums of the year. I've been procrastinating on this shit for a really long time. Sorry. It's been like literally 3 weeks since I said that I was gonna have this come out. But you know what? It's here now. Okay. I've got it all ready. I've got it all laid out for you guys. I hope you guys are gonna enjoy it. Let's get it. At number 10, we have Brockhampton's Ginger. I love Brockhampton, as you guys know. I've mentioned it a bunch of times in my previous videos. I love Brockhampton. I love what they did with the Saturation trilogy. After the absence of Amir, I was really looking forward to the direction that they were going to be going. After the absence of Amir, I was really looking forward to the direction that they were going to take the group in terms of their whole new sound, because I felt like without Amir, there would have been sort of a lack of edge, a lack of sort of aggression to the group, since he was sort of the more street level kind of person of the group, you know, a little bit more of like the hood aspect of the group, and everybody else seemed a little bit flamboyant. And then we got Iridescence, and I like Iridescence. I don't think it's aged well for me personally. I just think that Iridescence sort of has a little bit of an odd sound, just because I liked the production. I like some of the lyrical content. It's just, it feels a little empty to me, because after all of the Amir drama, I feel like they just needed to get an album out. I don't really think that the group was expecting to deal with so much of this drama within like the past 2 or 3 years now. I feel like Iridescence is a little bit of a, hey, like, you know, oh, we're still, you know, we're okay. We were working on this for a while, so like here it is, you know. It didn't really have any sort of concept, and it didn't really have any fluidity to it. I think, don't get me wrong, it's not bad. I just think that it's not their best. But then we get to Ginger, and Ginger basically answers a lot of the questions that were raised after a lot of the Amir Van drama. And Ginger almost is sort of like picking individual parts of the different groups' diaries and just putting it into this album. Especially what we get on Dearly Departed. Dearly Departed is probably the biggest answer to the question on how we know how Amir Van feels about all this, because he has come out with his own album and has addressed a lot of the problems and has addressed the situation even in the public eye through multiple interviews about it as well. But then we finally get the group's perspective. We get Brockhampton's perspective, and we get an explosive verse by Dom, who basically lays it all out on the line, saying that Amir was involved in robbing one of his friends or something like that. The whole track honestly just feels like them saying like, this is where we are now, and we're still depressed and we're still trying to get over it. It's sort of like a status change on Ginger, you know? It's almost like they're trying to say that we're sorry we've been away for so long, but this is why we've been so silent with this for so long, because it's become a built up sort of a built up sadness in them. Some of my favorites on this album probably would have to be Boy Bye for sure. That song slaps. It's fantastic. I love the production on it. I love everybody's verses on it. I would also have to say Heaven Belongs to You. I like the tone on it. I know a lot of people don't like Joba's verse because he has that deep echoey effect over his voice, but I kind of like it. And then also If You Pray Right as well. I kind of didn't like If You Pray Right at first, just because I thought the whole trombone thing was a little bit cheesy, but after a while it really grew on me, and I love the beat. And also there's a lot of interesting verses on that song that have to do with a lot of the situations that have been going on recently for them. At number 9, we have 'Cause I Love You by Lizzo. I just started listening to Lizzo around fall of 2019, around like December-ish, because the Grammy nominations had just come out, and I was like, you know, I haven't even really listened to her album. I've only heard like 2 songs by Lizzo, so I'm gonna give it a listen. And I gave it a listen, and here we are. Like, honestly, the production on this album is fantastic. I love the opening song. I love how cinematic she makes everything. For some of the Grammy nominations, I don't necessarily agree that Jerome is nominated for what was it, like best pop or R&B performance? I don't know, someone can correct me on that. I don't think that's her best song on the album, to be honest, but that's just me. But yeah, I really like this album. It's really enjoyable. It's nice and refreshing to hear such grand production behind Lizzo's voice, just because she has a lot of range and she also has a lot of spunk to her. So it's really interesting to see the dynamic between those two work out. A lot of the things that she talks about in her songs, I feel like for some people may get a little bit repetitive, but the way that she structures it throughout the album feels very fluid. I really like that. At number 8, we've got Anderson .Paak's Ventura. I absolutely love Anderson .Paak. As you guys know, I think he did a fantastic job with Ventura. I loved the last project, Oxnard. That was one of my favorites of last year. I think at least it was in my top 5 albums of 2018. And here we are with Ventura. And if you felt that a lot of the plastic that came with Oxnard was going to sort of carry over into Ventura, the plastic is completely gone. There's barely any instruments on Ventura that feel fake. Everything feels so acoustic, everything feels so lively, and just has a fantastic production sound to it. I love the way this album sounds. I love the little woodwind samples that he throws in every now and then. You know, it just adds like a little bit of like an old California vibe, cruising down the beach kind of tone for the whole album. My favorites are being Reaching Too Much, Make It Better with Smokey Robinson. I thought that was a fantastic song. Shout out to Smokey Robinson. I would also have to say Jet Black. Jet Black is really good as well. At number 7, we've got Injury Reserve's self-titled album. My friend Fabian Garcia showed me Injury Reserve. He told me to listen to them, I think at like last spring. I never did, just because I was listening to so many other people at the time, and I knew Ginger was gonna come out soon, and I was anticipating, because there was rumors that like Igor was gonna drop in the spring, which it did, and so there was a lot of anticipation for albums that were coming out around the time, so I just didn't get to it. And then finally in around like November, I listened to Jailbreak the Tesla, and oh my god, I love them. I love Injury Reserve. I totally support them 100%. I don't think they get enough credit, honestly, because Parker does all of the production himself, and so I think that is super cool. You know, they almost give like a little bit of a Brockhampton-esque sort of vibe. They come from Tempe, Arizona, and the rap scene isn't exactly super poppin' in Tempe, Arizona. So just the fact that they can come out of there, they sort of have their own individual sound, which I really love. Honestly, they sound really interesting just because they incorporate so many different elements to a lot of their songs. Like they'll incorporate some acoustic guitars, they'll incorporate house mixed with these super weird guitar samples mixed in over on top of it. And then you have Jailbreak the Tesla, even, you know, with Amine, and they literally just sampled Tokyo Drift and then decided to put this smashing distorted bass underneath it. And then instead of a snare hit, they decided to use a actual car horn, which I think was hilarious. And I loved Floss. I loved Floss so much. Live from the Dentist's Office was also a very fantastic album. I thought it was really cool. I also liked Drive It Like It's Stolen. I think it's a little underrated. A lot of people thought it was too short, but the whole thing, I feel like, just completely fits the whole vibe of the album that they were going for. Like, you're driving it like it's stolen, and so the whole thing has a certain urgency, a certain suspense to it. And then with the self-titled album, the production on here has changed a lot, actually. And Parker definitely, I feel like, has come into his own and has finally stabled himself as one of the better production artists of recent years, I will say. Some of my favorites on here, definitely Jailbreak the Tesla. Wax On with Freddie Gibbs, that song is phenomenal. Freddie Gibbs delivers an amazing verse and flow over that. And also Groggs' verse on Wax On is fantastic as well. And then I would also probably have to say Rap Song Tutorial is heavily underrated because that song is hilarious. And I think it really says a lot about the music industry and how it's really easy to create music, but it's also really easy to create bad music as well. And I feel like a rap song tutorial is sort of like a commentary, the new wave of music coming out, like SoundCloud rappers and stuff like that. You know, I thought that was hilarious. At number 6, we've got You Know What I'm Saying by Danny Brown. And I love Danny Brown because Atrocity Exhibition is probably one of my favorite albums of the past 10 years. Probably even in my top 10, I would say. With You Know What I Am Saying, with You Know What I'm Saying, Danny Brown has toned down a lot of the crazy, out there, and experimental production from Atrocity Exhibition and even Old and his previous albums, and has sort of let Q-Tip come into his own on production. It sort of created a little bit more of like an accessible tone to the album rather than the crazy experimental sampling and rhythmic inflections on Atrocity Exhibition. On You Know What I'm Saying, Danny Brown feels like he's really speaking to his audience rather than just a crazy person just shouting out to the world like, I'm Danny Brown, here I am, you know, rather than that kind of thing. I really like it a lot. Don't get me wrong, the album, some of the samples still sound really crazy and really whack, but I really think that it is a more accessible album, and so I think a lot more people enjoy this one rather than a lot of his old albums, just because the production on this sounds way more sort of, not mainstream, but just an easier listen, and an easier listen to get attached to. The album overall has such an interesting feel to it, and it has actually a really cool vibe to it. We get on Savage Nomad, on Best Life, we get a sort of complete array of Q-Tip's production potential, because the beat switches and also the bass line sound really cool, and they sound super throwback to like the 90s kind of vibe, you know, but that's like that for like the whole album pretty much. At number 5, we've got Revenge of the Dreamers 3, and I kind of feel a little bit weird putting this in like my top 10 just because they just released the director's cut for Revenge of the Dreamers 3, and I love the other 12 songs that they added on top of the 18 from the original Revenge of the Dreamers 3. So honestly, the director's cut is probably going to be super high on my 2020 list, but because it was released in 2020 and Revenge of the Dreamers 3, the original, was released in 2019, this is at my number 5. Dreamville is composed of a bunch of different artists from like around the country basically, and they consist of like J. Cole, Earth Gang, Jid, let's see, Ari Lennox, Boz, a bunch of these different artists, including a bunch of features from even Reason from TDE, and as well as like Vince Staples, Buddy Guabdad 4000, and just a bunch of these guys. And the incredible thing about Revenge of the Dreamers 3 is that it was made in only 10 days. And I think that is just astonishing to me. If you guys want to check out the documentary, it's on Dreamville's YouTube page. And it's only like a half an hour long, but it literally is just a camera guy going around the studio that they stayed in for 10 days. And it's just people are making songs like left and right. And we somehow ended up with this amazing album that is just full of bangers, a couple R&B songs even, and just a lot of fun. It sounds like, even though there's 4 producers on this thing, it sounds like everything kind of flows together and makes sense whenever it's played straight through. I think they did a great job selecting the specific tracks that were going to be on here. Everyone has a fantastic performance. I don't really think that any of the tracks on here, I don't really think that there's some that were supposedly throwaways. There's a few from the director's cut that I think are like okay, but then there's also 2 from the director's cut, like Up, Up, Away, and Still Up. Those slap.
Those absolutely slap.
I'm going to try to do a review on that one coming up soon, once I'm done with my top 10 and also my Grammy nominations video. But yeah, anyways, I'm super hyped for Revenge of the Dreamers 4 to come out maybe next year or maybe the year after. I don't know. Hopefully soon. Definitely looking forward to that. And hopefully they will be taking home a Grammy for Down Bad, because that song is fire, and out of all of the nominations for Best Rap Song, I think that one absolutely deserves it. So we'll have to see about that. At number 4, we've got Freddie Gibbs's Bandana. I started listening to Freddie Gibbs about a year or 2 ago because I was looking for a little bit of like a modern throwback sound to early hip hop, but I was also looking for a little bit of like a jazz influence, more geared towards that kind of stuff. And then I came across Pinata because my friend told me to listen to Pinata by Freddie Gibbs, and I was like, oh, who's Freddie Gibbs? Turns out Freddie Gibbs is a fantastic rapper, and his music is absolutely fantastic. I love Pinata. Pinata, I think, sounds fantastic. A lot of the collab that he did with Madlib was super, super cool. All of the production sounded so well done, and it sounded all so clean. It did sound like it came from, you know, like a 90s Snoop Dogg album or something like that. But it all sounded so good, and you couldn't even tell what era this was coming from just because it felt so original. And then we get to Bandana, and everything all the production is even smoother. And Freddie Gibbs sounds even more removed from the beats, which is super cool. My favorites from Bandana are definitely Palm Olive with Pusha T. That song goes so hard. Pusha T's verse is insane on that song. That beat is
Nasty.
too. Oh my god. Oh, that beat is nasty. And then also, I would probably have to say the one with Anderson .Paak as well was like Giannis. I don't know how to. I'm not gonna try to pronounce it. That one was really good as well. It was really cool to hear Anderson .Paak rapping over that nice little piano, little jazzy sample going on down there. Oh my god,
it sounded so sick.
But yeah, and then Freddie Gibbs destroys his verse on that one as well. I cannot wait. I want more Madlib collabs. Hopefully we might get another one in the future. Probably not anytime soon, but hopefully sometime maybe like the next 3 years. At number 3, we have got the man, the myth, the legend, Tyler, the Creator's Igor. And I love Tyler, the Creator. Like, I'm not even, like, no cap. You all know that, okay? Everybody who knows me, who's watching this video, probably knows how much I like Tyler, the Creator, obviously. I'm wearing the freaking Igor hat, for God's sakes. And so, you're probably all surprised that this is my number 3. But I just think that I like Flower Boy more than Igor. I think even Wolf, I think at the end of the day, is probably even better than Igor. But that doesn't mean that Igor is a bad album. Igor is a fantastic album. It's one of those albums that you can listen to straight through because it makes the most sense if you listen to it straight through. The whole thing just flows together really well, and it paints a really cool picture of how Tyler is going through a relationship with a girl. I think it's really interesting to see a person like Tyler who, if you look back at like the early days with like Goblin, with Bastard, even with the old Odd Future days, it's really interesting to see him go from this loud, super gimmicky kid and be able to transition into Wolf, which feels like a very more toned down album, but still has a little bit of that raunchiness that Tyler has always had. And then we get to Flower Boy, where it's just completely blown out of the water, and Tyler really becomes a new person and really becomes a sincere, emotional, but still fruitful and sad artist and just a human being. And I think that was a really cool transition in his whole discography, and even for Tyler himself. I feel like Flower Boy is really the peak of Tyler finding his sound and finding what his voice was, not just through his lyrics, but especially through his production. I think the production on Flower Boy is probably some of the best that we may get from Tyler. But then we get Igor, and I think Igor sounds fantastic as well, but it has a different texture to it. There's a lot of synths. There's a lot of synths. I think Sean C called it synth porn for the whole album, because it basically is synth porn. The whole album is just full of synths. It's full of these really echoey and textured audio effects. Everything on it sounds so simpy, but that's because that's the point. That's honestly why I like it, just because the story that he paints through the songs is something that I feel like is super relatable to people, and I feel like Igor is probably one of his more accessible albums besides Flower Boy. I think that's why people liked it so much. I love it just because it's a concept album, and I'm a nut for concept albums, and I love it so much. I don't know if it deserves to get the best rap album of the year. I think it deserves to at least be nominated for best album of the year, but in terms of best rap album, I would rather see Revenge of the Dreamers 3 get it, just because I feel like it's more deserved, and I feel like I would enjoy Revenge of the Dreamers 3 more as a rap album than Igor, winning as a rap album. I feel like with what Tyler has presented himself as, I feel like if Igor won best rap album, it would also be taking like a half step back to what Tyler's really trying to achieve because he's not just a rapper, he's a true artist. He's really becoming the next Kanye, in my opinion, and especially since he's taken so much from Kanye and even from other artists like Pharrell and Nerd. I really think that Tyler is more of an artist than a rapper now, and you could even see that in the transitions on Flower Boy too. Tyler sings for so much of Igor, and it all sounds really good, and it all sounds like you can actually feel what he's singing for the whole album, and I think it's fantastic. Overall, I love Igor. I love pretty much all of the songs. The only thing that I would say about it is that it's one of those albums where after you listen to it for a little bit, you can't really listen to it without listening to it straight through. There's only like, I think 3 or 4 songs on Igor that I could really listen to without listening to the whole album straight through. One of those being New Magic Wand, which is my favorite off of the album. I love New Magic Wand. I think the guitar and bass sounds
Absolutely disgusting, but I love it.
I think Tyler's verse is absolutely destroying, and the first half of New Magic Wand, before we get the guitar bridge, is super interesting because he's basically desperate, saying that he needs love and he's fallen in love with a girl and he needs her to be happy, but she plays him. And that's how we get the second verse on New Magic Wand, which is him basically saying that, you know what, I don't need you. You played me. Like, I still love you. But he's in that breakup phase where he's got all of these emotions running around. And the last half of New Magic Wand basically incorporates all of that. There's just
a loud ass guitar
just wailing. The bass line is still going. It's super loud. Tyler is basically almost screaming his verse because of out of frustration and sadness and just a whole mix of emotions. I think it's absolutely beautiful and super conceptual, and I love that about Igor and specifically New Magic Wand itself. Number 2 is JPG Mafia's All My Heroes Are Cornballs. I love JPG Mafia. If you don't know who he is, you should definitely check him out. Check out Veteran, without a doubt. Veteran is probably still my favorite album from JPG Mafia. But with All My Heroes Are Cornballs, the production on this is a very interesting transition from Veteran, just because All My Heroes Are Cornballs feels like a more personal album for JPG Mafia. Not to say that Veteran didn't really go into his whole past with, you know, being in like the hood or whatnot, or his horrible experiences growing up. With All My Heroes Are Cornballs, it's almost like he is starting to embrace the feelings of his own rather than letting his feelings depict his past. And so All My Heroes Are Cornballs really focuses more on JPG Mafia the person rather than JPG Mafia the story, I feel like, if that makes any sense. Especially when you get on Keenan versus Cole, and then you also get beta male strategies. Just the production alone, it feels like he is definitely talking more from himself rather than talking about himself. I think the whole album really carries a certain tone to it that Igor sort of carried from Flower Boy, which is more of like a simpy, still really weird and really crazy and out there production that is very reminiscent of like soft Death Grips would be like the easiest way to describe it. It still has a very toned down and mellow sort of effect that it has when you play it. A lot of the synths in the background are these very pretty chords and whatnot that he adds. Once you get past a lot of the crazy noise samples that are going on top of the whole album, and I think it sounds really pretty. And I think JPG Mafia is probably going to go down after 10 years. He's probably going to go down as one of the biggest production artists of the past 5 years, I think, or hopefully, you know, at least be recognized as somebody as high as like even like a Tyler now, or hopefully even as like a Kanye. But then again, this is only, I believe, his third album, so we still got a lot more to look forward to. But I love JPG Mafia, and I love what I'm hearing from him, and I cannot wait to hear more. And finally, at my number 1, we have Solange's When I Get Home. Now, there's a lot that I can say about Solange, but I'm just gonna start off with saying that her voice is obviously, if you don't know who Solange is, she is Beyonce's younger sister, which I know sounds kind of crazy if you really think about it, because I don't know who that mom is and I don't know who that family is, but you birthed 2 fantastic female artists, so god damn, shout out to their mom, because wow. On When I Get Home, the production is just
So sonically pleasing.
the entire album just sounds so
Gorgeous.
all of the little jazz and hip-hop infused samples and beats. The drums sound so acoustic. All of the synths sound so spacey and allow for Solange to really separate her vocals from the track. She sounds super alive and really expressive, even more so than A Seat at the Table, which is a fantastic album as well. And I'm having a hard time really choosing which is my favorite Solange album, just because A Seat at the Table really put her on the map. It was a super artsy album, but it was also really accessible at the same time, mainly because it still had a lot of hip-hop influence to it, along with keeping to her like an experimental R&B, very soft vocally R&B kind of vibe that she carries. But then When I Get Home, she really comes into her own, and the whole album is really hers and she owns it. And the way that she experiments with sound on When I Get Home is absolutely insane. Perfect example on oh god, what was it? On Bins, you have in the background, you just have this really fast-paced, you know, 4/4 drum groove, and then you've got like this really cool little synth bass beat that's going like bum, dum, dum. And then over top of that, she's just singing these beautiful, they're not even words, she's just singing these beautiful little inflections here and there for the whole album. And then you have these little synth patterns that are being played over top. I swear to God, Tyler was involved in some freaking way, because I mean, he is technically on the album for like a verse, but I'm pretty sure he had some say in the production of it. Like, let's be real. And so just for the whole album, the way that it experiments with sound, the way that Solange presents a lot of the songs that she's saying, and the lyrics that go along with it, this is really her staple
Oh god.
this is really her staple on the R&B world right now. Personally, I think Solange has a little bit of a better voice than Beyonce. Sorry. But that's just because I think, well, one, I think that she's younger, so I feel like she still has an insane vocal range, and I feel like her sound is still improving, so I feel like she could even be bigger than Beyonce sometime in the future, if that's even possible. But I feel like she has the potential to do it. I love the more artsy style of hip hop and R&B in the industry right now, and Solange, I feel like, is at the forefront of the R&B art style pop area right now, and I am so looking forward to what comes from her later on in the future, maybe even next year, I pray to God. But you never know. I really think this should have gotten nominated for a freaking Grammy, and that kind of pisses me off, but you know, that's just that's how it works, doesn't it? But yeah, that's my top 10. I know I finally got around to it. If you guys, if you want to give your opinions on where you guys think the album should have placed on the list, or if you even have different albums that you want me to listen to that I should talk about, or that you feel like should be on my list, go ahead and comment down below. As always, like and subscribe. Thank you guys for watching, and I will see you guys in the next video with hopefully my Grammy nominations. See you guys later.